Have you ever been in that situation where a son, a daughter, or even a beloved grandchild comes to you with that slightly anxious look, asking for financial help? It could be to pay a bill, get through a rough patch, or even to fulfill a dream, like changing cars, traveling, or investing in something that seems important to them. And then, deep in a parent's or grandparent's heart, we feel that mix of love, responsibility, and even pride for being able to lend a hand. Because, in the end, nothing makes us happier than seeing the people we love living well. But at the same time, there's a silent part of this story that few people talk about. What happens when that help starts to weigh on our wallet? When the support that was supposed to be temporary turns into a habit, or when, without noticing, we start giving up our own comfort, our own security, just so we don't disappoint others. This is the delicate point I want to talk to you about today. This isn't a conversation about saying no in a cold way or cutting ties. Quite the opposite. It's about finding balance, about learning to care for the people we love without neglecting ourselves. Because think about it. What good is it to save someone else's boat if our own boat starts to sink? I know that talking about money can feel uncomfortable. We grew up hearing that it's almost a forbidden subject, that it shouldn't be mixed with family, that it can lead to arguments and misunderstandings. But in practice, silence can be even more dangerous. Silence can hide exhaustion, anguish, and the fear of not having enough in the future. How many times have you stopped yourself from buying something for yourself, or from investing in your own health, just so you wouldn't refuse help to someone in your family? That's why I want to invite you now to look at this issue with care and clarity. Imagine we're sitting together, having a calm cup of coffee, and I'm going to share with you 4 simple actions that can transform this financial relationship into something fairer and healthier. And most importantly, without you losing your role as a source of support, guidance, and love in the lives of the people you care about. The first action that comes to mind has to do with boundaries. And when I say boundaries, I don't mean harshness or coldness. I mean respect. Respect for yourself, for your life story, for all the effort you've made over the years to get to where you are. Many times, we confuse generosity with obligation. We think that if we don't help, we're failing as parents or grandparents. But the truth is, love is not measured by the money that leave your wallet. Love is measured by time, by care, by presence. When we learn to set boundaries, we're also teaching others that our contribution goes beyond finances. I remember a friend who told me a very common story. He used to help his son every month with a fixed amount, believing it was just a rough phase. But over time, he realized his son had started to count on that money as if it were part of his salary. And worse, he never made an effort to change his situation. When my friend finally got the courage to talk and said he had to stop helping in order to take better care of his own finances, at first there was shock, even some hurt feelings. But over time, his son found other ways to get organized. And today he actually thanks his father for that no that seemed harsh but turned out to be liberating. This kind of example shows that boundaries don't mean rejection. On the contrary, they're a form of responsible love. It's saying, I love you so much that I want you to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. And I'll be here to support you emotionally, but I can't carry the full weight of your choices alone. You know, one of the trickiest things when it comes to helping children and grandchildren financially is that very often the heart speaks louder than reason. And that's only natural. Our love for them is so great that we end up forgetting about ourselves. But there's one detail that makes all the difference: learning to separate what is real help from what is dependence. I remember a very kind lady who once told me something that really struck me. Every time her daughter needed something, whether it was to pay a late electricity bill or to buy school supplies for the grandchildren, she would help. At first, it brought her immense satisfaction because she felt useful, present, almost like a heroine in her daughter's life. But as time went on, that stopped being emergency support and turned into routine. Her daughter no longer even tried to get organized because she knew her mother would always be there to solve the problem. What started as a gesture of love ended up becoming a crutch. And here's the interesting part. When this lady realized that her own retirement money was running short, she decided to change. She sat down with her daughter, they cried together, and they had a very honest conversation. It wasn't easy, of course, but from that moment came an enormous lesson. Her daughter understood that she could no longer live at her mother's expense and began looking for alternatives. Today, their relationship is even stronger because the help stopped being money and became something much more valuable: emotional support, advice, presence. This example teaches us something precious. When help turns into dependence, it's no longer help. It's as if we're taking away the person's chance to grow, to take responsibility, and deep down, that can also breed resentment. I've heard parents say they felt exploited, and children who, without even realizing it, started to see help as an obligation. It's a silent trap that begins with love but can end in frustration. And that's where the second important action in this conversation comes in: learning to distinguish urgency from habit. Urgency is when a child is truly going through an unexpected situation, like an illness, a job loss, an accident. In that case, of course, if you have the means, it makes sense to help, to lend a hand, to be a safety net. But habit is when the request repeats month after month with no change in behavior. In those cases, the best way to help might actually be to say, "I can't keep doing this, but I can help you find other solutions." Imagine you have a neighbor who asks you for a piece of bread every day. If you give it every single time, he'll never feel the need to learn how to bake his own bread or to budget so he can buy it. But if one day you teach him how to make it, or show him where he can get it cheaper, or help him think of alternatives, you're truly transforming his life. With children and grandchildren, it's the same thing. Money eases the moment, but guidance, example, and encouragement are what really teach. And this brings me to another essential point: having open conversations about financial education within the family. I know many of us didn't grow up with that habit. Money was something people didn't talk about. It was dealt with silently. But look at the beautiful opportunity we have now to teach the younger ones, through our own experience, the value of planning, discipline, and caring for the future. You can, for example, share how you organize your bills, how you set priorities, how you think about saving for emergencies. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, no spreadsheets or technical terms. It could be a simple conversation. "Look, I always set aside the essentials first, then see if there's anything left for extras. I never spend everything at once because you never know when you'll need it." This kind of sharing not only helps the younger ones get organized, but also shows that your support goes far beyond money. And you know what's beautiful about that? When we teach instead of simply giving, the relationship changes. Instead of being seen as the wallet of the family, you become someone wise, someone who inspires and guides. And that generates enormous respect, because deep down, children and grandchildren do want our help, but they also want our approval, our trust, our pride. Of course, it can also happen that you're already in a situation where the help has become a burden. And I know cutting it off all at once can be hard. In those cases, it might be easier to start reducing gradually. For example, if you're helping every month with a fixed amount, you might gently explain that for now on you'll only be able to give half and later reduce it again. That way, the other person has time to adjust without such a big shock. It's like helping a baby give up the pacifier. You can't just take it away from one day to the next. It takes transition, care, kindness. And while all this is happening, don't forget to look after yourself. Ask yourself, what would I like to do with my money that I haven't done yet? What health or leisure needs am I postponing? What would make me happy now without guilt? Because yes, you have every right to use the fruits of your labor for things that bring joy, comfort, and peace. That's not selfishness, it's self-care. I'm sure you've already noticed that many times it's not really about the money itself, but about the emotional bond behind it. The desire to feel useful, loved, to continue playing an important role in other people's lives. But let me tell you a secret. You don't need to spend to be essential. Your presence, your hug, your wise advice in a difficult moment, all of that has an immeasurable value, far greater than any bank transfer. And if you ever feel guilty for thinking this way, remember, no one can give what they don't have. If you run yourself down, if you stretch yourself too thin, you end up more fragile and vulnerable. And in that case, who will take care of you later? It's better to teach others to be strong now, while you're still by their side, than to leave them unprepared for the future. Now, there's also the matter of clarity. Often, we help automatically. Someone asks, we give. But what if instead, we open an honest conversation? Something like, look, I can help you this time, but I need you to understand that I also have my bills, my limits, my dreams. I can't compromise my future for this. That honesty might sound tough, but it prevents a lot of resentment down the road. Think of an everyday situation. You go to the supermarket, see a promotion, and think about buying a chocolate you love. But then you remember you're saving money to help someone. In the end, you leave without the chocolate, carrying a sense of lack. It seems silly, but it isn't. These small sacrifices, when they pile up, start to erode self-esteem. They create the impression that we don't deserve pleasure or comfort anymore. And that's not fair. It's not fair to you, who worked your whole life and gave so much to your family. Another image I like to use is the oxygen mask on an airplane. You've heard that instruction. In case of emergency, you must put on your mask first before helping others. The same applies to financial life. If you don't take care of your oxygen, which here means your security, your peace of mind, your well-managed money, how will you have the strength to help those in need? And look, this is not selfishness. Selfishness is disregarding other people's well-being. Taking care of yourself is the opposite. It ensures that you'll be present and healthy for longer, able to support others in ways that don't just involve money. When we start seeing this issue from this perspective, there's already a sense of relief, because it takes a weight off your shoulders. You don't have to be the solution to all of your family's financial problems. You could be an inspiration, an emotional support, a life advisor. But it's not fair for you to put yourself at risk just to keep everyone else's bills paid. I know it may not be easy to put this into practice. Sometimes we ourselves get used to this role of the eternal provider, the one who always solves everything. And letting go of that role can feel scary. But I want to remind you of something. You have the right to your independence, your rest, your choices. Retirement is not the end. It's a new beginning. It's the phase when you can finally look after yourself more, take care of your health, travel, and enjoy small pleasures. If the money you worked your whole life to earn disappears every month without leaving anything for you, then something is wrong with that equation. And the good news is, it's possible to change this without breaking bonds, without creating conflicts. It's possible to have sincere conversations, set boundaries, and still remain that loving, fundamental presence in your family's life. You know, when we look back and realize how many challenges we've already overcome in life, how many bills were paid with hard work, how many tight spots were overcome, how many sacrifices were made for the sake of the family. That story, full of courage and dedication, is what brought you here. That's why the third attitude I want to share with you in this conversation is very special. Valuing your journey and putting yourself first. It sounds simple, but many times we forget to value ourselves. Life was always a constant rush, thinking about others, taking care of the house, of children, of grandchildren, of work. When retirement comes, some still feel they must continue sacrificing themselves, as if they don't have the right to finally think about themselves. But the truth is, this is precisely the time to reap. You planted so much, you cared for so many people, you did your part. Now, the care you deserve must be a priority, and that includes your money. Because money isn't just currency, it's freedom. It's what guarantees you can choose a better doctor, take that long-dreamed trip, buy yourself a gift, eat well, live with dignity. If that money disappears every month to support choices that aren't yours, you lose a piece of that freedom. And losing freedom at this stage of life is something no one deserves. I once heard a story that illustrates this well. A man, already 72, used to say that his greatest pride in life was never letting his children go without. Yet he himself wore old glasses, postponed a medical appointment he needed, and even stopped buying new shoes because he thought he didn't need them. When asked, he would answer, "The important thing is that they're fine." But deep down, he felt a silent sadness. One day, his granddaughter asked, "Grandpa, why don't you ever buy anything for yourself? Don't you like gifts?" That question hit him like a shock. He realized he was erasing himself, and that even the younger ones had noticed. From that day on, He changed the way he saw himself. He started setting money aside just for him, for his little pleasures and care. And his relationship with his children improved because they began to see that he also had needs. This story shows that when we put ourselves first, we're not being selfish. We're teaching others that our life also has value, that our choices matter, that our happiness cannot be set aside. This is a powerful lesson, and perhaps one of the greatest legacies you can leave, the example of someone who knew how to care for others, but also for themselves. And here comes the last attitude, the one that closes this circle of balance, turning financial help into conscious support. This means that instead of simply handing out money, you can offer something that truly makes a difference. It could be sitting together to organize a budget, helping renegotiate a debt, or brainstorming income alternatives. That way, you don't harm yourself, and at the same time, you give your children and grandchildren the tools to grow with more independence. Imagine, for example, that a grandchild asks for money to buy something they really want. Instead of just giving it, you might say, "Let's think together about how you can save part of that amount. I can contribute a portion as encouragement." That way, you don't carry the responsibility alone, and at the same time, you teach the value of effort, patience, and achievement. It's a gesture of love that educates, instead of simply satisfying. And in the end, that's what we're building here. A relationship of love that's more balanced, more mature, more respectful, where you remain an essential presence in your family's life, but without being overwhelmed, without losing your freedom, without giving up your right to live well. Now, I want to look you in the eyes, even if through the screen, and say something important. You deserve it. You deserve to care for yourself, to have moments of joy, to reap the fruits of the life you built. Don't let guilt or pressure take that away from you. Life after 60, 70, or 80 is not a waiting room. It's a stage of choices. And those choices can bring energy, dignity, purpose, and pleasure. So, if today you help children or grandchildren financially, I want to encourage you to think about how to transform that help into something that also preserves your own well-being. With clear boundaries, with honest conversations, with conscious support. This way, everyone wins. They learn, they grow, they mature, and you maintain your health, your independence, and above all, your peace of mind. And since we've come this far in such an important conversation, I want to ask you something. Share in the comments how this experience has been in your life. Have you ever felt pressured to help financially? Have you found ways to balance it? Your story might inspire others who are going through the same thing. If this video touched you in some way, share it with someone in your family too. Sometimes a child or grandchild needs to hear this not directly from you, but from someone else to better understand what you feel. It could be a loving way to open the conversation at home. And before I say goodbye, I want to leave you with this final message. Taking care of the people we love is beautiful, but taking care of ourselves is indispensable. Life after 60 is a wonderful opportunity to live with more lightness, more independence, and more joy. You have that right. You deserve that right.